Assalamu alaikum and welcome to my journey to Islam on Al Hikmat TV 24/7 online. Today we have in Al Hikmat studio a very wonderful and unique brother Abdur Rahman. We're going to talk to him about his journey to Islam, how he came into Islam, what motivated him to become a Muslim, his involvement in Islamic activities, and where it has taken him in all the years of experience and learnings in the path of Allah. So welcome to the show, brother Abdur Rahman.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum
Sheikh
assalam.
Shafia, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's really a pleasure to have you with us, and I know people all over the world are going to really benefit from what you have to share in your experience.
Inshallah.
You will become an international hero here. You know, Muslims in the East and Far East and Middle East, I know they are very fascinated about brothers like you or people like you who come to the fold of Islam with your background and your involvement in Islam and your enthusiasm in spreading the deen of Islam.
Inshallah.
So let us start by you telling us where you're from originally.
Well, originally I'm from Virginia, the state of Virginia, little town, not necessarily small, Norfolk and Virginia Beach, Virginia. It's like on the ocean, right on the ocean,
Wow.
in the Chesapeake Bay.
So when you speak about Chesapeake Bay, you probably have been running around those waters in your youth days.
Oh yeah, very much, very much. We would camp out on the beaches as Boy Scouts and whatnot. Yeah.
Do you know if that's one of the longest underground tunnel in America? I think, huh?
I believe it is, yes. They have two tunnels there that go across the Chesapeake Bay from Norfolk into Hampton. I think there's just the tunnel itself is like a mile long, each one of them.
That is so unique, brother Abdur Rahman.
Yeah.
You know, I've been there maybe 2 or 3 times. And what is so interesting, I don't think many people know of that. I mean, they probably read of it, but they have not been there to see how unique it is to be on the, you're driving,
Yeah.
and suddenly you go underground,
Exactly.
under the ocean. You get back up in the middle of the ocean and you're driving again, and then you go back down under
Again.
the ocean.
Yeah.
That is really interesting.
And that's one way
just
that you're
one
traveling.
way.
It's not oncoming traffic, it's one way.
Yeah, they got two
Yeah.
high, two
Two tunnels
Yeah.
adjacent. Yeah, it's a phenomenal, it's like, yeah, I guess you could say one of the, probably be the 8th wonder of the world instead
Yes.
of the 7 wonders.
You came from a fascinating area in
Yeah.
America. Huh?
Oh yeah, mashallah. That's home to like one of the largest naval bases in the world because of the deep water, deep
So
harbors.
hence the
Natural.
reason for the tunnel and the underground
Exactly. You can get a lot of
Yes.
ships in and out of there real quick.
into Washington.
And to Washington, and it's right like about 250 miles, maybe at most 300 miles from Washington, D.C.
So that's where you came from. So at what age did you accept Islam?
I accepted Islam around age 20.
Age
Age 20. And I was up in Washington, D.C., which is like second home to me. I was living there, and a friend of mine introduced me to this newspaper called Muhammad Speaks.
Muhammad Speaks.
Muhammad Speaks, which is from the Nation of Islam.
And that was what year?
That was like about 1975. Islam was not fashionable at that time. I believe the only thing, the Nation of Islam was like one of the only focal vehicles for Islam at that time. Everything else Islamically was subdued, kept quiet. People were not really promoting themselves as Muslim per se. And it was an enlightening period for African Americans.
Yes.
Yeah, and so the Nation of Islam, it was a vehicle that gave, a platform rather, that gave African Americans something to build their self-esteem
Yes.
and to recondition us back into a family orientation.
Those were the days when Muhammad Ali was very
Muhammad
famous.
Ali was very famous.
1975.
Yes.
Elijah Muhammad.
Elijah Muhammad.
Malcolm X.
Yes. And they were very prominent up in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
You would get a sense of euphoria when you would be around them because they owned things, they owned businesses.
Of course.
Back then, blacks didn't really own businesses.
They were very vocal.
Yeah, very vocal. And you saw the power in these people.
Yes.
And not only just power, but wisdom, you know, Hikmat, because of they were giving us something that we'd never heard before. It was different than Christianity. And even though it was, now that I've come to know, far from the true path of Islam, but it puts you on the right course of thinking to make you ask questions, or again, to give you self-esteem into something.
So when you were introduced to Islam by this friend, you accepted Islam and started working with Nation of Islam.
With Nation of Islam, yes.
So how many years did you work with Nation of Islam?
Nation of Islam, I dealt with them maybe about 2 years before I realized that something wasn't right there.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and that's at the time, or right after the time.
But Nation of Islam was the way,
It
the
was the way.
pathway.
Yes, yes.
And that has happened to many people,
Yeah.
like Malcolm X.
Exactly.
Came into Muhammad
Muhammad
Ali.
Ali, yeah.
Came into it, the doors were open.
Through Nation of Islam.
Got to understand Islam, and then that sort of led you into deeper waters of Islam, which brought
Exactly.
the true aspect,
True
of
aspect.
the depth of the Quran and the Sunnah, if
Sure.
we would want to put it like that.
Sure. Because at that time, for instance, while I was in Nation of Islam, I never heard anything about hadith. You see, the fashion and the way that you prayed was not the true way that we pray.
Okay.
The Quran itself, I don't recall seeing a real Quran back in those days. Not saying it wasn't there.
So what did they use?
They had books, another book that they called the Quran.
Okay, and
You
they
see.
used parts of
Parts
the
and parcel.
Quran that were applicable and practical
Yes.
for their better understanding and the followers.
Exactly, exactly. We were a people, decimated people at that time, after coming out of the Emancipation Proclamation and things like that. So you had to really, really motivate African Americans back into it. So it was a racial thing, but it was
So
needed.
you're making me want to think we should have called this show My Journey from Nation of Islam to Islam.
No, it's proper with
Isn't that
my journey
interesting?
to
No,
Islam.
I'm just kidding.
Because-
my journey from Nation of Islam to Islam. Now, I know a lot of Nation of Islam followers would be listening to this show. And
Yeah.
I mean, I have a good interaction with all of them.
Oh, yeah, it has evolved.
We have a good working
has
relationship.
evolved.
But you're right. It was more about a nation, a people.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me that, which helped a great deal, it did lead people into a better understanding from the corrupted daily lifestyle
Exactly.
into the doors of Islam.
Yes.
And then you came to better understand Islam as you started studying, and basically to know that there is no racism in Islam.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
And
that was one of the fascinating things we found
That was something
out.
that people were a little confused about, that it's a racial operation. And Islam has no race.
Well, see, that's, yeah, like one of the things, and you can see that in a micro aspect when Malcolm, not only Malcolm, but Muhammad Ali and Elijah's son, Wardeen.
yeah.
Wardeen Muhammad.
Yeah.
They all, well, I'm quite sure he knew some things then,
Yes.
but they knew this thing had to evolve into the truth.
Yes.
And when Malcolm went to Mecca and came back, and being the vocal person that he is, and spoke about these things, it woke everybody up. So we all had to kind of like step back and regroup again. And so that choices had to be made. Do I continue following this? And at that time, Farrakhan was very charismatic. You know,
And he is.
Minister Farrakhan, even today. he's
Listen,
still.
let's give Farrakhan
Oh, yeah.
credit. He is
Yeah.
a very charismatic, eloquent speaker. You know, that is interesting, and that
Very,
is
very
very
much
phenomenal.
so. It made us become more professional, because you had then they put emphasis on bettering yourself, discipline, because African Americans had to go through that. How would I say? Progression again, to catch up with other society, with the rest of society. Because before it was just, we looked at ourselves as in servitude. There was only servitude.
Of course.
Yeah, now we could become business owners, we could become entrepreneurs, we could become educators. Then we started seeing, like in the Nation of Islam, they did a lot of wonderful things, encourage individuals to go to college.
Listen, they have done fantastic.
They did fantastic
and I give
work.
credit to them. I tell people, yes,
So it was something needed.
They had some misunderstanding, and especially around the race situation that created some problems and issues which Islam does not condone. But they have done phenomenal in opening the doors and the pathways to people better understanding Islam and living a better humanitarian life, because there was so much corruption, so much misunderstanding. It took people away from crime and drugs and alcohol and brought them to a true path. So,
Very
you know,
much so.
I don't want people looking at this show to get the misunderstanding.
No, no, no.
In anything
it served a very, very good purpose. Because now we're like the largest sector of Muslims in America, African Americans.
Yes,
yes. And just like back then, you had Muslims from the native lands of Islam. They could have stepped up to the plate and formed organizations to better correct the situation. It didn't happen.
No.
Just like now, there's still some lackadaisical efforts,
of course,
that are happening now that can be done better.
Better. And we will talk about that. Do you know we have already gone 10, 12 minutes?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a deep subject here for Islam in America.
We will have to get you back. We'll have to get you back on the show and speak some other aspects, part two, because you know what you have to share and your experience can really be very motivational
Inshallah.
To a lot of our brothers and sisters worldwide.
I hope
to a lot of non-Muslims, a lot of Muslims, and that can be really interesting and education.
Yes.
So what motivated you now from Nation of Islam to
True Islam?
True Islam, General Islam, the real Islam.
Well, because when you even getting
Quran and Sunnah, if I may want to say.
When you got the Nation of Islam, you coming from Christianity, you knew you had something there.
Yes.
You had something there. They gave you the basics to let you understand life a lot better, and your meaning, your place in life, made life more meaningful. You see, there was a God now that you could communicate to directly. For instance, there was salvation to be attained if you did bad and you got on the bad track. You could recover. You see, so it was just the sense of it made things right as to where the trilogy of Christianity, it left us hanging a lot. There was no sense. We could never really get sense in that.
And you had some background in Christian.
Oh yeah, I was raised by my mom, a single parent mother, 5 of us, and she was very adamant about us going to church every Sunday.
Excellent.
If you didn't go, you didn't go outside.
So you grew up
as a Baptist.
As a Baptist,
in
and
the
a
choir,
regular church-going boy, and I know in our previous discussions you did attend a Christian university.
Yes, yes, Virginia Wesleyan University, which is a Methodist university. I went there. So
you got some sort of formal Christian training there.
Yeah, it's a liberal arts school. And yeah, we did a lot of humanities studies, and as well as my major was business finance. I wanted to be into that, but yeah, you had to have these certain electives in humanities to get your degree there.
Okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
So it was a Methodist, and yeah, and I had close friends that were like from African Methodist Episcopal Church. So I had a lot of church background there.
So now you live in Florida. So how many years now are you in Florida?
I've been to Florida now since 2005.
2005.
It was interesting. In my travels, I ran into some interesting brothers that were Egyptian, Tunisian, Palestinian, and they had a company down in Florida that was making RAM memory. Computers fascinated me. I was kind of like a minor in computers at that time.
So from Washington, you moved to Florida.
I left Washington. I was back in Norfolk, Virginia Beach.
Okay.
And I would stay on the phone with them a lot. We met up in D.C. and whatnot, and they wanted me to come down and help them.
But Norfolk didn't have a masjid in those days.
They had a masjid. It was
Nation of Islam
Nation
Masjid.
of Islam Masjid. And they also had a very small satellite masjid at the Old Dominion University, which students from all over the world attended that one.
Yes.
That was the real masjid, Orthodox Islam Masjid.
There and then.
Yes.
So when you came from Nation of Islam to the moderate general Islam, I hope I'm using the right word.
The Orthodox Islam.
The Orthodox Islam, if we want to put it. Let me get the right word. The Orthodox Islam.
Yes.
In that understanding, so our Nation of Islam brothers and sisters don't think I'm saying real Islam, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, not and
Orthodox
fake Islam. No.
Nation of Islam to Orthodox Islam. So when you came into Orthodox Islam, where did you start going to pray and practice, etc.?
This was a long journey.
In Washington? Or?
That was in Washington as well as in Virginia. But it was always like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because I didn't stay or live among the Islamic community.
Okay.
So all of my friends were still like Christian or family and things, and I was the only one in my family that was Muslim.
And then you also had Nation of Islam friends.
Nation of Islam friends, well, that kind of like...
Brothers.
Yeah, that kind of like went away after I left Washington, D.C. Nation of Islam was really when I was up in Washington, D.C. They were very strong up there. But I also, once like Malcolm and the rest of us got a whiff that things weren't right in the Nation of Islam, or it could be better, then we went into another search. So I went through like Moore Science Temple of America. I didn't go into anything outside of Islam, but that was another factor of Islam, faction within Islam, Moore Science Temple.
Okay.
That wasn't normal, what was his name, Drew Ali. So that was just another facet, another aspect of Islam, but it wasn't real Islam.
I understand. And what would have been plain on your mind is something very interesting, because now from Christianity, Nation of Islam, Orthodox Islam, and especially when you go into the masjids with immigrants, Muslim immigrants, because I mean, I sort of been around and I know how some of people like you who come into Islam, when you come into Islam through Nation of Islam, and you look at Muslims from Pakistan and India and Arabia and the Middle East and Far East, you look at them as Muslim immigrants.
Right.
Because in many cases, they're not practicing Islam.
I mean, good that you should mention that, because...
And I want to mention it. That's what this show is all about, my journey to Islam.
Right.
And how a lot of Muslims can misrepresent Islam with their culture.
Very much so.
So when you come in studying Islam from a very intellectual point of view, you know what I'm saying? And you see Muslim immigrants not practicing Islam, and they were supposed to be the Muslims, it can be very confusing, Brother Rahman.
Very confusing.
And
so you go from one confusing scenario into another.
And you go into the masjid,
Yeah.
and it's like, am I in Pakistan, in Arabia, in Bangladesh?
Right.
Is this Islam? Because they talk Islam on the member, but the whole lifestyle is a culture.
Right. And not only that, but at that time, like when I left D.C. and went back to Norfolk and Virginia Beach, and I was traveling, doing other things, their emphasis a lot was on business. So people were like doing business.
A lot of what you
a
call
lot
it?
of the Orthodox Muslims, a lot of the native Muslims from native countries.
Muslim immigrants.
Yeah, Muslim
I mean,
immigrants, if you want to say.
That's
Yeah.
how the Nation of Islam call them. A lot
Yeah,
of
Muslim
say
immigrants. They were
Muslim immigrants.
emphasizing on business, and even when I came to Florida.
And why I want to say Muslim immigrants, because that's the reason why most of them migrated.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that the thing that African Americans or confused nation members were trying to run away from and get into, you had the Orthodox Muslims coming out of it trying to be more American.
Yes.
So it was like a revolving door.
I love that statement. So
Yeah.
you had the African American Muslims who
The
came to
reverts
Islam.
and converts.
They are trying to run from the corrupted, materialistic, worldly life.
Exactly.
And they were looking at Islam as the way out of this corrupted way of life.
Exactly.
And now these Muslim immigrants,
Yeah.
and I want to use the word Muslim immigrants,
Okay.
not Orthodox,
Right.
because they were not
They were
practicing
not.
Orthodox Islam.
That's true.
And I have a problem with
That's
that. And
true.
I tell them that. And some of them disagree with me.
No,
but
that's
listen, whether they disagree with me or not, it doesn't make me wrong. And doesn't make them right either.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So they were now running behind the materialistic things in the world.
The very thing we were running
The
from.
un-Islamic things in many cases.
Right.
The lifestyle.
Exactly.
What
They were
these-
trying to emulate non-Muslims.
what people like
To put
you
it-
are running from.
Right.
So when you run into the mosque, you see one thing, and in their lifestyle is another thing. So that could be very confusing.
That's very confusing. But alhamdulillah, thanks to Islam, you due diligence, and the thing about it with non-Muslims and converts, when we get a taste of Islam, we know it's real.
Yes.
Even if we don't really understand its full gambit, across the board, everything about it. But we know from where we're coming from and the gray areas of Christianity that even the smallest amount of Islam we get, we know this is the real deal.
And you are looking at Quran and Sunnah.
Yes.
Not Muslim immigrants.
Not Muslim immigrant. And
you're not using them to be your guideline.
No.
The Quran and
No.
the Sunnah of the
and
Prophet
Sunnah.
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Yeah, that's what we use. And so then you get into a personal pursuit of perfection and trying to get that, because Islam, you have to study.
Right.
You have to get into your studies, because otherwise you're going to run into culturalism. When
yes.
I called this thing, I said, when I was up north, I was always 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I say, I'm tired of this, leave this, and I'm going down with these brothers and work with these brothers in this computer firm and see if I can get completely in Islam. So I made a hijrah.
You made a hijrah.
I
Well,
made
you know
a
what?
hijrah.
I want to stop at that hijrah right now.
Okay.
Because would you believe we have been talking for over 20 minutes?
Wow.
Because
Unbelievable.
your topic is very interesting. Your
Alhamdulillah.
journey to Islam is very interesting.
Alhamdulillah.
Christianity, Nation of Islam, to Orthodox Islam. That is
Oh,
fascinating.
it only gets more intriguing now.
So now in Florida, your involvement with Muslims and Islamic organizations.
This is when Islam gets real to me.
Yes. So we are going to go on a short break,
Okay.
Brother Abdur. And when we come back, we're going to continue talking about your activities and your involvement. And I need to let our audience know,
Inshallah.
from a Christian to Islam, and now he's involved in something called Divine Connect. And we're going to talk about that after. Because
Inshallah.
we didn't tell you that before, but we want to tell you that. Brother Rahman is the managing director, or the man
Marketing.
who really in the promotion line of a very interesting product, Divine Connect. Well, I mean, he is not the managing director of Divine Connect, but I will call him the managing director of the marketing
Yes.
aspect of Divine Connect. He's a man that is making things happen
I was there from its inception.
worldwide. You know what I mean? And when we come back, we'll talk about his Islamic involvement. And I want to continue talking to you about
Yes.
this Muslim immigrant thing.
we'll mix it
'Cause
together.
that's a confusion.
It
You know,
is.
because I have a little very Christian Muslim history. And
okay.
when I look at
Yes,
people
you
here in
do.
America, Muslims bringing Pakistani, Arab, Bangladesh, and all these cultural things into Islam,
Very confusing.
I sometimes wonder, should they be called Orthodox Muslims or Muslim immigrants in America?
That's very true.
Whether what it is. And when
Yeah.
we come back after the short break, we're going to continue this interesting aspect with Brother Abdur Rahman, inshallah.
Inshallah.
So welcome back to My Journey to Islam on Al-Hikmat TV 24/7 online, and my brothers and sisters and viewers worldwide. It has been a pleasure talking to Brother Abdur Rahman before we went on the break, and now it is indeed a pleasure and an honor to continue talking to him on his experience and his journey to Islam. So Brother Abdur Rahman, so we ended on that note where now that you have moved on in studying the Quran and the Sunnah, and you made your life pattern around that area,
Yes.
as opposed to following the Muslim immigrants' culture, that cultural life. Because that's a disaster, you know.
Yes, yes.
It's a disease, it's a sickness. You made a good point. And I mean, I love what you said. While people like you were striving to come into Quran and Sunnah, you were looking at other people who claimed to be Orthodox Muslims, and they were saying they were Orthodox Muslim, but their lifestyle were all running behind what you ran from.
Yes, yes. Well, yes, when I made my hijrah down to Florida, let's see if we can sum this up quickly.
Yeah, because we
And-
just
and-
got about 10, 15 minutes, yeah.
I got with a group of brothers from various Islamic nations, primarily Egypt, Palestine, Jordan, Algeria, Tunisia,
Okay.
Morocco. Yeah, and they had this company that was, I can't remember the name of it right offhand, that was sending RAM memory back in the day. It's like in 2005, 6, globally. They wanted me to be kind of like the face of the company, or instrumental in customer relations and marketing because of my background into it, and my proficiency with the English language, and dealing with non-Muslim suppliers and companies. This went very well, and it was like when I came, I didn't know anybody in Florida, and I didn't want to meet anybody else except for my Muslim friends, because now I'm truly living among nothing but Muslims.
Yes.
And I'm excited, you know,
Yes.
I'm enamored, I'm like, wow, finally here. It went very well. And then I started seeing some things, which is human nature in people. But it was like I was in a cocoon for a minute, for over a year. And just really, these brothers taught me so much and re-emphasized on the deen, the prayers, perfecting those things, the importance of hadith, Quran and Sunnah, calling the correct adhans, and things of that nature. So I got to really polish up basics that really needed, that should be in any Muslim. And then I went further and tried studying, you know, Arabic and reading the Quran, doing all of my Ramadans perfectly and whatnot as best to my ability. And it was most uplifting. Learned a lot. And then wanted to get married.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So the brother, the owner of the company, was like, no. It's going to rock the boat. It's going to shake things up. But at the same time, he was like, you're supposed to get married. It's like half of your deen.
Deen, yes.
So again, this is a confusing thing. And I saw some other things that were not as good. And this brother used to practice hadith. He was like very proficient in hadith and whatnot. But some of his actions were not fair to his fellow brothers that were working there. And I was like, wow, you guys are like from the same neck of the woods, like from the Gulf countries and whatnot. And the way that you're treating some of them is not fair.
And that's the problem. You see a lot of
Yeah.
people read Quran and Hadith, but we don't live it.
Exactly, you didn't live it. And
don't
and,
live
and the
it.
thing of and the stake for a convert when you're trying to learn.
You're looking
and
at action.
You're looking at action.
Yes,
And these
yes.
things stick out like a sore thumb.
Of course.
And so it becomes, you know, and it's like, thank God that you, alhamdulillah, that you read where Allah says, you know, follow Islam, not the practitioners of Islam,
course,
because they fall short.
Yes.
And
the
so,
Prophet says that, I
Alhamdulillah.
leave behind me two things, the Quran and my Sunnah.
That's it. That's it. And at that time, I wasn't doing that well.
Not the Muslim immigrants.
Not the Muslim immigrants, no. Because, and at that time, you can see where people are following is culturalism or is Islam. And alhamdulillah, I may not have been proficient in my Arabic and other things like that, but Allah blessed me enough to see the difference in the two and what needed to be followed, which was Quran and Sunnah, you see. So that, I didn't get discouraged when I would see these shortcomings of individuals.
Right, because you are following
I'm following the
book.
Quran and the Sunnah.
Yes.
And but I would point it out to them, and I would tell them, I was like, hey guys, you guys are like running towards what I'm running away from.
Yes.
I'm like, you guys are trying to be more American than I am, and you're sacrificing your deen for even in your imagery. You know, I say the only ones that are really true soldiers that I see in Islam now are the sisters, because they have to wear the hijabs and whatnot, and they're forefront. But the brothers, you don't even know if they're Muslim or not.
Yeah.
The way they dress. And I know it's not all about in a dress, but your actions as well.
The actions, the
Yeah.
actions.
But
And
if
it's
you
not so
don't
much about
dress,
being-
there is something to that.
Of course.
You know, because if you don't dress, then you're like a chameleon, and you can start to do things that are not Islamic.
Of course, of course.
So that goes. You should keep that in mind.
Of course,
There's
your
a purpose
impression,
for it.
your dress code has a lot to
Has
do.
a lot to do with it.
I mean, Islam. Well, we don't want to get into
No,
a topic.
that's another
but
topic.
Generally speaking, even in the professional world, if you don't dress professional,
Yeah.
you could misrepresent your profession.
Exactly.
So as a Muslim, if you don't dress properly, modestly, and within the laws of Islam, you could do a lot of misrepresentation.
Right. Exactly. And people won't even know that you're Muslim,
Of
and you can get
course.
away with it.
And you can get misguided.
Yeah,
and
you can get
misled
misguided.
and
Yeah.
everything.
And you take shortcuts and
So
whatnot.
time is just going. We definitely have to get you back on the show, brother.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Abdur Rahman. But tell us a little bit. You got married.
I got
and then
married,
You got
alhamdulillah.
involved because I want to lead to Divine Connect. in the
Divine
next
Connect.
5
These same
minutes or
brothers
so.
that I was working with that were getting shortchanged. This is the beauty of Islam. They pulled together. I wasn't in the best of financial conditions at that time, but I had a steady job, and this is the beauty of Islam, real Islam. The brothers pulled together and did my nikah for me.
Wow.
Alhamdulillah, paid for it. MashaAllah. I was at ICBR, and beautiful brothers there, very beautiful brothers. And my wife, a very beautiful sister,
Yes.
and she practices, vehemently Islam, strives in her practice, and she's from Pakistan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Which is another big cultural place.
That's
a lot of culture
but,
there.
I mean, Allah
But
bless you that your wife come from a very
pious family,
Islamic
and they strive
family.
hard. Yeah.
I mean, your wife went to Hajj.
Yes. With you, I
with
think,
me,
really, yeah.
And that's
took the
many
son
years. That's
many
over
years
10,
ago.
15 years
Yeah.
ago, I would think. I'm not too sure.
They inspired me a lot because I saw in that family.
They're very involved in Islam
Yes.
and
And they-
Islamic activities because...
And they
our-
teach their young ones.
Yes, your
from
wife used to be a
way-
teacher
Ah,
in one of
mashallah.
our Islamic schools.
Alhamdulillah, yes.
Yes, that's
so
how
when I
she
saw,
ended up going to Hajj in the whole 9 yards.
That's how I looked when I was trying to choose a wife. I saw her, and she would come to all the Fajr prayers.
Yeah.
And she taught at the Islamic school. So based on that, and she was a niqabi. So she wore niqab. So I married my wife without even seeing her, before.
Wow.
So it was that's the faith,
Wow.
And this is what I wanted. So alhamdulillah, and it has turned out beautiful. Allah has blessed me with that. Allah has guided me, and she introduced me to people.
That is very Islamic and very deep, eh?
Very deep, very deep. But Allah, this is where you see where Allah guides those that do righteousness, that do righteousness and remember Allah and strive in the right path. And Allah will give His hib love to you. And you'd be surprised with that. And we're reminded of that, like in Surah At-Tawbah and with Musa, alayhi salam. when his mother was instructed to put him in the crib or the basket and just toss him into this river.
Of course.
And an enemy will pick him up.
And you got the whole life history of Prophet Musa alayhi salatu
salam,
Surah Taha,
Miriam,
and the
Miriam,
whole 9 yards.
and the Prophet Isa. You know, so Allah chooses people to do things for him. And I believe this brings us up to this point where we are now. I work with a lot of Muslim brothers here, managing like phone stores, Metro PCS, and things like that. And then I got with this dear brother that my wife, again, through her associates, introduced me to, Brother Salahuddin, who had at that time a manufacturing firm for making the voting booths.
Yes.
This was back in 2010. I got with him, and he used me as a project manager up in New York. He got a big contract, huge contract, and this was for a Muslim getting a contract as such.
Of course, that's
like
huge.
90% of making 90% of voting booths in the country by a Muslim. And so another brother, Khan, and I went up to New York, and we set all 5 boroughs up with this thing, with these voting machines, voting booths. Then I came back. He wanted me to continue working with him, but I didn't want to travel from South Florida, from like Davie up to West Palm Beach, which is where he was located. So again, my wife, another associate of hers, asked me to become a volunteer with IFSF, a big, large institution in South Florida, as a youth coordinator. They didn't have a youth program set up, so I had to set the program up.
And you did a phenomenal job.
Alhamdulillah, but Allah guided me, because I realized in order to teach, you have to know. You can't teach if you don't have it within.
But I came to know of you when you were at IFSF.
Exactly.
Because you were the man getting all the things done.
I got a lot of things done there.
All the activities. You wanted to get a program going.
There was a big transformation at that time.
Because, you know, and I know people from IFSF would be looking at this show, but you had a lot of Muslim immigrants there.
Yes.
And whose dream was a lot about this worldly things.
Yes.
So when you would bring the true Islam to them, they would probably like, this we hear in Jummah, it's for Eid, it's for Ramadan, it's not for our daily lifestyle. That's the kind of thing
I got them into doing
yeah.
programming that would be educational with the deen. And one of the things I like, when I said, when I'm here, now I can just wear my attire all the time. And so it was funny because here I am dressed in proper Islamic garb, and everybody else that's there from Islamic countries were dressed in non-Muslim garb. And they used to always laugh at it. It's like, wow, Brother Abdur, you're more Muslim than we are. I was like, no, it's not the dress that makes it that way, but this is something that I promote the Islam and let people know that you can be intelligent, you can be a Muslim and be all these professional things. You don't have to be a professional and then put your Islam on the shelf.
Of course. Do you know,
you can still wear your Islam.
There are some people who are like, when I go on a minbar with my amama, my long gown, and my they're like, because you have some sheikhs who go on the minbar with jacket and tie and suit. So people have the impression that, when you wear jacket and tie and suit, you're probably more intelligent than when you wear an amama.
No,
but there is a place.
I look at it the other way.
There is a place for everything.
Everything.
I mean, I lecture in the universities as a guest speaker, in churches, in synagogues. And to be very honest with you, Brother Rahman, there are places and time that I go very normal like this, and I call this normal because
you want one piece or
you don't want to
something.
misrepresent your mission, where people think you're coming there to convert them and to preach to them. I came to give the message of Islam and to educate people on what is Islam and the Quran and Sunnah. So
every time I see you do this, though, you have one piece of something.
Of course. When I go and
you don't go fully, discarded as a Muslim. They know you're still Muslim.
Yes.
You may not come in full regala, but you have one part to still let them know. And everybody, and I think actually you're better respected when you do that. Because when these Jews, rabbis and whatnot come, they still have a yarmulke or
Of
whatever
course,
on their
of
heads.
course, of course,
You know,
of
they may
course.
not have the whole thing on, but some part you will know that they are Jewish.
Yes.
You know, and priests, they have a big cross or whatever. You will still know
So you
that they're
keep
Christian.
your code and your sign as a Muslim.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes.
You don't
yes.
totally discard it.
Yes, so time is getting up on us, brother. Listen,
But
we have to get back.
We have to get back.
I want to have a show with you specifically on how you see Muslims as a person who have accepted Islam for more than 40 years now, how you see Muslims and Islam striving. I mean, things are going nice, alhamdulillah, but things can go better.
They will,
And
inshallah.
how we could sort of get rid of a lot of this cultural Muslim immigrant vision where people come here and it's not about Islam. It's, you know, Islam has become something very secular. They go to mosque on Friday, they have a social event in the mosque, they do certain things, but the lifestyle is really more worldly. It's not really Allah and Sunnah. So I want to have a show with you where we talk really about that.
Sure.
But today, because we just got about 3-4 minutes again,
I got you.
Tell us about your connection now into Divine Connect.
Okay, with Divine Connect.
And what you're doing and what's your position and how our audience can benefit from Divine Connect.
Okay, it touches bases on what you were just asking about. What can Muslims do more? And I think it comes with understanding. The language, which is one of the things that always amazes me, is that Islamic countries and Islamic school systems in Islamic countries, they don't emphasize on the Arabic language.
Yes.
And that's how can, and this is what your kitab, you need to understand your book, you see. And so, and there's a lot of Islamic schools even, the Arabic language is not the emphasis. It may be small now, it's growing a little more. So with Divine Connect, we felt that with those
you know, I like to sound very critical sometimes. I don't think people are not only concerned about Arabic, they're not understanding Arabic, they're not even concerned about understanding Quran.
Right, exactly.
In general, even in their own language, Brother Abdur Rahman.
So what we want to do is for those that do go, that are trying,
Yes.
that have it in their heart, and those are the ones that are dedicated, that go, that make an effort to go to Hajj and Umrah. What we've done is we've devised the device, Brother Salahuddin,
Yes.
with Divine Connect, where that this is called a translation, Arabic translation receiver. And we have live translators in Mecca and Medina. We have offices there as well. We're based in West Palm Beach. But this device receives the translations that are given by live translators of the khutbahs that are going on there. And so we feel that, you know, you see when people come from Hajj and Umrah, they're like in another world for like another 2 weeks or a month or whatever. But these are devoted individuals, mothers, grandmothers, and fathers, and even now youth are starting to go there. If you understand what's being said, you can come back and you can share it. This is a start.
And I've had the pleasure, the honor, and the blessings by Brother Salahuddin.
Yes.
When he made arrangements for me to go up on the Haram in Mecca to go and visit the stations.
Yes. Yeah, I'll set up our studio there.
Where your studio is, where this is being transmitted from.
Yes.
And I saw
Yes.
some of the translators translating in different languages.
Exactly. And this is in Al-Haram and in Nabawi. Now, Allah has brought me from, you've heard about earlier my humble beginnings and coming up to this point. And I know to get here,
the marketing manager of this.
but I'm truly blessed to be in such a project as this. This is historical.
It is phenomenal.
You know, since the 1400 years ago, nothing has been done in there to bring about a transformation of such. So now when you go there, people spend $10,000, $6,000, $10,000 to go to Hajj and Umrah, and then the main thing that you go for, you sit there and you don't know what's being said.
Yeah, they have no idea.
No idea what's being
going
said.
on.
The
what
person
are the
next
news.
to you is crying. You don't know why they're crying. You don't feel it. But now with this device, you can plug it in your ear. It's a very simple device, and it picks up the reception. We have live in real time. As Sheikh Sudais or whomever is giving the khutbah, you're hearing it, boom.
But plus, not only does this transmit the khutbahs. It keeps you updated.
Yes,
in announcements and activities.
We're adding features
and things
to it
that are happening, isn't it?
That will be a 24-hour update by the end of the year, hopefully.
Right, whatever is happening around.
Yes, it'll be, you can keep up like GPS and things of that nature. A lot of tour operators want to keep up with their people in their flock.
The announcements in the Kaaba.
Yeah, announcements in the Kaaba are very important.
Everything that are made,
top
you
of the
hear
hour.
it on this,
You're
right?
going to hear it on this one. This one right now, this particular version, we don't have that in. That's being put in as we speak.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so we just came back from over there to add new features to the device.
Okay.
We just released, this is our first version of it, and this is just to translate the khutbah.
Superb.
Alhamdulillah.
Listen,
So
brother,
that's a start.
Allah bless Divine Connect and bless brother Salahuddin Muhammad.
Yes.
And all of you and the team that are working on this project.
Yes, it's a huge team.
You are making this a dream for people.
Inshallah.
And that's why Hikmat, we feel very blessed to work with Divine
Yes.
Connect. And I consider
we look forward to you being with us on this.
I consider this a divine connection.
By all means.
Hikmat connection with you all and with the Holy Land and the Kaaba and the khutbah. Listen, this is divine connection.
Yes, it is. And as a token of our generosity, of our appreciation rather, for you being with us, because when we took our first shipment over, the equipment and everything, I remember we had you come up to the warehouse and offer prayer over all of the material that had to go over. So for those that don't know, Sheikh Shafayat, we have towers on the minarets in Mecca and Medina. The Imam blessed those, all the equipment that we had when we initially set up over there. And we're expanding now. And we're adding 12 more languages to it.
Wow.
We're going to have 35 languages on this thing for people all over the world can understand now. And so we want to give you this little t-shirt.
And that's why I feel divine connection with you all.
Keep your divine connection.
It has been a connection. You know what it is? The machinery going there and for me to be connected with you on those machines.
Yeah, this
then
is
I
historical.
went and I saw it. I saw them before it left here.
Yes.
To go to
you were in the
Makkah.
warehouse in West Palm Beach.
So Allah wanted to make this connection.
Alhamdulillah. And that's why I tell you, Sheikh Shafayat, I feel so blessed that Allah brought me, you talk about a journey to Islam. This has been a journey.
Of course.
And it's like it's just beginning.
Journey to the Holy Land.
Journey to the Holy Land.
And to the whole
Who
world.
would ever have thought that I would be in Mecca and Medina right now?
And you're taking this throughout the world, and Hikmat is going to be working with you.
InshaAllah.
And I think we're going to let the whole world know anybody wants to get connected to Divine Connect.
Yes.
Hajj, receivers, khutbahs.
They can come through
They
you.
contact Hikmat TV.
Exactly.
Or they contact you guys, Divine Connect, and we can make it happen.
Especially those in the Caribbean.
Yes.
Because they're very devoted people there.
Caribbean, worldwide.
Worldwide, global.
You know this show goes worldwide, brother.
Yeah,
you
were telling me.
We have people worldwide, whether it's Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Africa, Ghana. Listen, the whole world Caribbean that looks at us, gives us feedback, and that's why your message and this interview with you on my journey to Islam on Hikmat TV will create a lot of waves, inshallah.
MashaAllah.
So I want to thank you very much, inshallah, for your...
The pleasure was mine. Thank you so much for having me on.
Your connection and your services in the path of Allah, and most of all for coming here in Hikmat studio to be with us. And we're going to catch you again on maybe a global issue topic.
MashaAllah.
And I want to talk about Islam and Muslims in America and the world, inshallah.
There's a lot of work to be done, inshallah.
Yes. So thank you very much, Brother Abdur.
May
Allah bless you. And my brothers and sisters and viewers out there, it has been a pleasure speaking to Brother Rahman. And do tune in 24/7 to Hikmat TV online for all our different shows. Who's Who in America, Interfaith Views and Issues, My Journey to Islam, and may Allah bless you, and may Allah guide each and every one of us on the right path. Assalamu alaikum.